How you doing, everybody? Appreciate you coming in and tuning into another episode. So this episode, because it's been, I want to say a couple of weeks since I've, done a video for you. Want to talk about some things that have happened with the sports teams. Celtics make a sneaky move that, the more I think about it, I don't hate it. So talk about that. Look at their cap situation because there's been an interesting development with that after said move. Got to talk about the Red Sox, even though didn't have the best time out in San Diego. But I still think there are reasons to be optimistic. And then definitely got to talk about Patriots. You see, rocking the Patriots jersey. For this one, preseason kicked off, saw some things I really like. Even though it's the preseason, can't necessarily go too crazy, but still can be encouraged. So that's what I'm going to touch on with this. And this might become a regular thing where, like Saturday or Sunday, kind of do a weekly roundup for all the teams, workshopping it. But let's go ahead and start. Okay. The Celtics, in a move that I feel like a lot of Celtics fans aren't necessarily surprised by, traded George Niang to the Jazz. They get R.J. Lewis Jr., who you might remember from the NCAA tournament. St. John's went in with a little bit of buzz. I believe they made it to the second round, and R.J. Lewis had possibly the worst game of his career. He was like 2 for 17 from the floor, and it was so bad that Rick Pitino pulled him from the game. I think he sat basically the whole second half, or like the last bit of the second half when the game was still somewhat imbalanced. And mind you, RJ Lewis was the Big East Player of the Year. It obviously caused some rumblings, but post game, Rick Pitino didn't really want to talk about it. So that's the same RJ Lewis who was an undrafted guy that signed with Utah. I believe he signed with them on a two-way deal. He's now going to the Celtics, which we'll see what happens with him. But youth, take that. But the move that they made, I actually want to touch on. They go ahead and sign Chris Boucher to a one-year deal. He was in Toronto. He was on the championship team, so he is an NBA champion. Coming over to the Celtics, and he gives the Celtics a stretch big, which I guess, with Horford not coming back at this point, Porzingis dealt away, there's a need. So Boucher, last season, 10 points, 4.5 boards off the bench. The shooting splits, you can live with it. Basically 49-50% from the field, 36% from three. Love that. So now with Boucher in, Niang out, I guess Boucher and RJ Lewis in, the Celtics have one roster spot open. So I guess the question is, what do they do with that spot? Now, they haven't signed Amari Williams yet, which they also made another move, kind of slid this one under the radar as well, but Miles Norris was waived from his two-way deal. Now, Miles Norris was a guy I did kind of like. I saw some potential there. I guess Boucher is basically a more polished version, so I guess I can see the reason for the move. But by them doing that and opening a two-way spot, is that, I guess, to slide RJ Lewis in there. He would become, I guess, the third two-way guy. But now the extra roster spot, do they they have to sign Amari Williams, which I guess would take that roster spot. But I think there's also some news about Charles Bassey like wanting to sign with the Celtics. So if Bassey is somewhat in play, could Brad do another kind of minor move with a guy like Xavier Tillman? Maybe move him out for like a second round pick or something like that. I don't know. That's something maybe you could watch for and see if that's a possibility. But bigger picture than all that. Well, first off, let's look at Chris Boucher because there is something with Boucher that I did want to look at, which was yes, his shot chart, I guess we'll say. And there we go. So if you're looking at that, if you're on audio, I'll obviously explain it as well. But where Boucher definitely fits Missoula ball, as we're calling it, Boucher is a big that can shoot the three. He shoots well from I guess, the left corner. If the Celtics are on offense, if he's in the left corner, he shoots above league average from there, which is good. I think he shoots around league average from the top of the key as well as the right corner. He's well above league average in the mid range, which the mid range shot, I guess, isn't. It's supposed to be not isn't supposed to be a good shot, but he shoots it really well, and he finishes around the rim. So this could be a sneaky move that they've made. Maybe maybe it influences a couple more wins next year, but it definitely seems like a move. Once again, for a team that, yes, they don't have their best player, but a move like Boucher coming in doesn't scream tank season. Just saying. Obviously, get closer to the NBA season. We'll kind of look more at the East as a whole to see where the Celtics kind of slot in. I still think they're going to be a playoff team. You look around social media, there's some people who are acting like, Celtics are going to be barely a play-in team or something like that. I feel like that's way too pessimistic. I still think with Tatum down, they could be a top 6 Eastern Conference team. But you let me know if you agree with that. Maybe I'm talking crazy here. And do you like the Boucher move? Not necessarily a move I was thinking about, but he was a college teammate with Peyton Pritchard. I believe Boucher was there. I think he was an upperclassman when Pritchard was like a freshman. He might have been a senior. So there might have been like a year overlap or something. So there's some familiarity there. The Celtics obviously know Boucher from his time in Toronto, divisional games and all that. So I think it'll be interesting to see how he's used. He's also a guy who can run the floor. So remember, Brad Stevens talking about being a faster team. Boucher kind of fits that mold as well. So I guess expect a lot of dribble drives with Boucher possibly being open in the corner. Kind of, I guess, basically how Drew Holiday was kind of used, but Boucher can also get to the rim a little bit. He has some rim protection on defense as well. So I'm interested to see the fit with Boucher along like Jaylen Brown, Derek White, guys like that. But I like the move. I'm wondering, is Tillman maybe the next guy to go? Because we saw like J.D. Davison, who didn't make a lot of money. He was sent out. Niang was around 8 to 9 million sent out. So it kind of seems like Hauser, like if you didn't think Hauser was necessarily safe before, I feel like at this point he's probably safe to be on this roster next year, which I don't hate that. But now I'm looking at Tillman's spot. And reason for that is when you look at the cap situation, the Celtics are now, hold on, let me make this a little bit bigger for you. I just love these ads. Yeah, so second apron, big stumbling block early on in the offseason. They're now 10 million below that. They're now closer to the first apron than the second apron. So I think that's job done for Brad. But now that the fact that they're less than 2 million away from the first apron, is it possible the itch might be there for Brad to get under the first apron? Like I said, moving out a guy like Tillman, who Tillman is on for like 2.5 million, expiring contract. Bassey probably wouldn't cost more than that, I don't think. But even if he did, you would get a little bit younger, a little bit more athletic, which I feel like is kind of the theme of this offseason. That's a guy I'm looking at as a possible next move out. Hauser's 10 million might actually still be tempting because you do that, you're well below the first apron and you're just a luxury tax team, which obviously frees up some more flexibility with the team. But I think if this was the last move of the offseason, I don't think it's as doom and gloom as some people have made it out to be. But the job has been done. They're clearly going to be under a second apron, which that was bullet point number one. So for that, you kind of got to give them a positive off-season look. Yes, the names moving out versus the names coming in, discrepancy in, name recognition, talent necessarily, but this offseason has always been a bit of a, if you want to say reset, sure. I would more likely say like a reshuffling. They're reshuffling the contract situations. So next season they could probably make another big move and get back to championship basketball. So let me know, like I said, about the Boucher move. Do you think Tillman might be the next guy moved? Because I kind of do. But I want to move on to the Red Sox, where Red Sox since July 1st, 23-8. Great record. I was diving into the numbers. And one thing I've seen that's been kind of a correlation with the better play, strikeouts each month have gone down. They had their worst month, May, 257 strikeouts as a team. They were 28-32 June 1st. So that accounted for that bad month in May. Since then, 37-20. Strikeouts have come down each month since. This series with the Padres, though, they did lose 2 out of 3. They lost today. Strikeouts kind of became a problem. In the 2 games that they lost, I think actually in all 3, strikeouts were a bit of a problem. And the crazy thing is, they lost 2 out of 3. They could have easily have won 2 out of 3. Because game 2, they lost that one in extra innings on a high chopper that got over Bregman's head. Padres scored the winning run. The game on Sunday, Dylan Cease pitched well, but the Red Sox had opportunities. They were down 5-2, bases loaded, and the Red Sox didn't cash in. Anthony struck out to end that. I believe Toro struck out before, because only 1 out when Toro was up. Toro struck out, and then Anthony struck out. That ended the inning. Rafaela, well, that might have been all 3 outs, might have been strikeouts. So I don't think there's any reason to panic necessarily. I still think the Red Sox have turned their fortunes in this season. I still think they're a good team. They're still the first wild card, although depending on what happens with the Mariners, they might be the second wild card. But there's some distance between them and the Yankees, who are the third wild card team. So they still have a hold on a postseason spot. But because of the last couple of seasons where their Augusts have been kind of the focal point for their second half collapse. They're now 6-3 in August. They have a 3-game set with the Astros coming up, who they did just sweep, was the last week, but it's down in Houston now. Houston's gonna be looking for some revenge. So it's not an easy series whatsoever. Then after that, they have a series against the Marlins, I believe, in Miami. So if this Padres series, like if we look back September and go, man, they had a rough August, and we look to the Padres series as the start of it, then yeah, I think some of the feelings about the past couple of years will definitely come back up. But if they turn around and take like 2 out of 3 from both the Astros and the Marlins, then I think they right the ship and everything will feel positive down on Yawkey Way. I think it's still called Yawkey Way, but for the Red Sox. So I'll be interested to see. Like I said, last August they went 13-15, and then September they were even worse. So they need to rally, come back from this. Don't let the Padres series lead to an elongated slump or anything. Good teams lose that series to the Padres, turn around, maybe win the Astros one, and maybe even sweep the Marlins. But if they take 4 out of 6 from the next 2 series, I think no harm, no foul. But let me know kind of your thought process on the Red Sox after the Padres series. Are you concerned in any way? Some pitchers did struggle that we hadn't seen struggle a lot this year. Giolito had a rough start. Bayo, who started on Sunday, kind of bad Bayo. But I think Bayo and Giolito, I feel like, have pitched well enough for long enough that you can excuse the one bad start. You hate that they happen right after each other in the same series, but it happens. We saw some bullpen guys struggle. Murphy for sure. I believe Wilson, Hicks has been struggling, but we saw some bullpen guys look a little iffy. I think that's going to be something to watch. Are they breaking down from being overworked? Is it just a little bump in the road? Like, can they get back to some level play? Because at least in September, you get expanded rosters. You can bring some other guys to take even more pressure off of those guys in the bullpen who have, at times this year, carried the team when, they were struggling to get quality starts from anybody not named Crochet. I think Buehler had a decent start, so he's trending up right now. That's what I'm saying. Like, the hope is the Bayo Giolito thing isn't a precursor to them trending down, because you would love to see the staff. Crochet's been rock steady, but Crochet, Bayo, Giolito, Buehler, you get those 4 pitching well at the same time. I'd love to see what kind of damage this team could do with the rest of their schedule. May, we'll get to see a second start from him. I believe he's going to start at some point in the Astros series. So hopefully he can bounce back from his first start. But, first start, new location, I don't want to necessarily kill him for that. So, yeah, hopefully the pitching comes back around against the Astros and the strikeouts cut down again. Okay, so look, like I said in the beginning, main purpose was the Patriots. Let's talk Patriots for a little bit. Like, how are you feeling about the Patriots, for real? The joint practice of the Commanders, all the reports were, Drake May looked great, outperformed Jaden Daniels, which Terry McLaurin must have been sitting there like, yep, I'm about to get paid, because the offense struggled against the Patriots without Terry McLaurin. I think Jaden Daniels was doing a lot of dumb short passes into the flat and everything like that. But Drake May was pushing the ball. He was making decisive decisions. And I feel like that leading into the Friday preseason game, Patriots fans are intrigued. Now, Friday night, I was watching it. Thought about doing a little watch along, but didn't. Opening kickoff. You had Gibson and Travion Henderson back there, which Travion Henderson was working with like kick returning and uh, training camp and everything. But I was intrigued to see what was going to happen. If you could have started this preseason game any better, I don't know how. Travion Henderson takes it back 100 yards. Zolak's going crazy on the call. The McCourtys were up there as well. You also had the Brady statue unveiled and everything. So there's a lot of good vibes behind the team. And then for Henderson to do that, cherry on top. Now, yes, it is the preseason. You can't overreact to it. But what you took from that was the speed that they talk about with Henderson is legit. Like you watch that return. First, the blocking was great. He ran down one lane, not a guy near him, wasn't touched. But when he had to really turn it on, it cut across the field a little bit to get by. It was the kicker and I think one defender, and he got by them with ease. That's where you saw, change of direction, the speed, acceleration, and all that. Because once he got in the open field, he was pulling away from guys. So that explosiveness is something I feel like you haven't seen with the Patriots in a while. So that was reason one to feel really good about this team. Second one, a lot of talk about Will Campbell, Jared Wilson on the left side of the line, two rookies on Drake May's blind side. Now, Drake May did have that early fumble where they ran a stunt. Wilson or Campbell, communication wasn't there. Guy came in, and Drake May trying to do a little bit too much. The ball slipped out of his hand, which was probably the one bad thing from the game. Defense turned around, stopped them, so didn't really hurt them. For the most part, I thought Jared Wilson looked good at left guard. Cole Strange had been given opportunities, struggled there. I feel like Jared Wilson's got that position on lock. And for your first experience with Will Campbell, short arms, all that stuff being talked about, whatever. The man's a dog. I feel like the play calling was smart. They were using his athleticism, his agility on toss sweeps to the left side. Campbell's getting out there pulling. And the poor corner from Washington, I can't pronounce his last name, but Campbell kept being like forced on an island with this guy and was just bullying him. There was the one Henderson run where he had like an 18-yard scamper on a toss sweep, which he showed the explosiveness on that play as well. Campbell took his man to the ground. So, and I think with pass protection, the passing game wasn't necessarily featured, but the Patriots ran the ball really well. They ran to the left side, they ran to the right, they ran up the middle, but I thought Campbell looked really good. And Wilson too. I guess the O-line in general. But Campbell was definitely somebody to watch going into the game. He looked good. We'll see if he can build upon that next week against Minnesota. They also only had 2 penalties, which last year penalties were a major problem. So, once again, preseason, I get it. But stuff like penalties is something that you could pay attention to because a lot of that is mental focus and all that. This team seems locked in. Third thing I noticed, red zone execution, because the Patriots did put up 48 points, so they were in the red zone quite a bit. They went 5 for 6 on red zone possessions. A couple of times we saw Drake May scampering for a touchdown. We saw Josh Dobbs. Obviously a broken play. He did like a 360 at one point and then got into the end zone. So you saw 2 mobile quarterbacks use their legs to score touchdowns. We also saw the Patriots get near the goal line up, play big boy ball, run it in. So love to see that. And I feel like that kind of speaks to what Vrabel's doing with this team. Wants this team to be a tough team next season. Between Henderson, Ramondre Stevenson, Antonio Gibson. We saw those guys take handoffs, get to the second level, lower their shoulder over guys. We saw Gibson stiff arm a guy to the ground. Ramondre Stevenson running over guys. I think between those three, tough running. Will Campbell on those sweeps, getting out there, taking guys to the ground. Toughness. That's going to be the identity. Last season, you didn't know. It was an inexperienced coaching staff. The game plan was almost non-existent in a lot of weeks, and this is not me trashing Gerard Mayo in any way. It was a tough situation for him, first time as a head coach. I completely understand it. Vrabel knows what he's doing. Vrabel had success in Tennessee. He did some stuff at Ohio State and everything. Like, Vrabel is, as a lot of people look at it, the NFL head coach has to be your CEO. Well, business is booming now with Vrabel at the helm. Speaking with the toughness again, this game seemed like they were focusing on power football. They ran it 31 times for 153 yards, little less than 5 yards a carry. If they're doing that in the regular season, they're controlling clock. They, wearing defenses down, moving the chains. Then yeah, the Patriots will be in a much better spot than they were at the end of last season. One thing that I did come out of the preseason game looking at, this wide receiver depth chart has all my attention. Because now we're to the point where last season, wide receivers were a mess. Everybody hated that group. This season, it's almost like they have legit talent. Like Kayshon Boutte, who was probably the one wide receiver that had a really good season last year. He's worked himself from a guy that we were questioning at the end of last season as to whether or not he, should be on this team. The Patriots just fumble the bag again with the wide receiver picks. He seems like a lock. I think Kyle Williams, who didn't have a catch, but he showed several times that he's going to beat one-on-one coverage, whether it's in the red zone or, out on the side and getting downfield. He did it several times, couldn't get a catch because, Dobbs was late on the throw on the goal line where he beat his man to the inside by a mile, and Dobbs threw it behind him. He had the go route down the right sideline. He had a step or two on his guy. It was underthrown. He had another one. He had to step on the guy. Should have been pass interference. Wasn't called. So I think Kyle Williams, he showed his little his ability to stretch the field as well as just short burst quickness. So I think those two young guys are locks. Douglas, I feel like, is a lock as well because Boutte was able to stretch the field last year. Douglas working, the underneath, the intermediate routes. Douglas is probably the most talented of the young group, so he's going to be a lock. Diggs, they brought him in to be a number one. He's not going to be on PUP, IR, or anything like that. He's a lock. So that's 4 guys. Mac Hollins, who we'd been missing for a lot of this offseason, he came back for the joint practice with the Commanders and looked great. So you can forget any concerns with him. He knows this system really well. It from all the notes and the videos I've seen, he was consistently getting open, as was Douglas. So that's 5. Now most teams carry 6 or 7 wide receivers. More teams on average will carry 6 wide receivers. And now this is where the fun starts happening for me. Because now you're talking about Kendrick Bourne, who's a guy I really like. When McDaniels was here, Bourne had a great season. He's a vet. And he probably would have this 6-spot lockdown except for Javon Baker, who we know, has ability in the wide receiver game. But in the preseason game, we saw Baker as a gunner On special teams, Kendrick Bourne doesn't play special teams. So Baker may have a leg up in that instance. Uh, Jalen Polk had surgery in the offseason for his shoulder. He had, one play where he was involved with. He got tackled to the ground, automatically went back to the locker room. So Polk at this point, I want to see Polk do well. I like Polk's ability. It seems like he's at the point he's either going to be on IR or he's just going to be gone at this point. It's unfortunate, but I would probably lean more to IR. I think Bourne's another guy who could be on IR because Bourne is actually banged up right now. So if you take those two, if they're IR, fine. Baker, I think, has a leg up for the 6th spot. That's until you see Efton Chisholm, who was the name of the OTAs. I think training camp slowed down a little bit. Against the Commanders, he had the most catches, the most yards. He definitely showed, because there was a report that he's been watching like a lot of Danny Amendola tape and Edelman tape. And a couple of catches that he made, if you close your eyes, well, I guess if you close your eyes, it wouldn't work. But if you'd put on tape of Amendola or Edelman with some of the routes that Chisholm was running in the slot, they would look very similar. And Chisholm had a touchdown catch off of like a quick little out, get it to him, and then gets upfield. Stuff Edelman and Amendola would do regularly. He also had I think it was like a wide receiver screen where, broke a couple of tackles, made probably like a 5-yard gain into an 11, 12-yard gain by making a guy miss a tackle. Stuff you saw Edelman do a lot. So now it's like, could Baker and Chisholm force the Patriots to maybe shortchange themselves at another position? And that position I'm looking at would be tight end. Because Henry and Hooper seem like locks at the tight end position. Jaheim Bell is a guy that I was intrigued with when they drafted him last season. Could he be a guy that could you slip him to the practice squad? I could see that. And then in the Commanders game, there's a guy, Jake Westover, who's like the 4th tight end, but he's playing fullback because the Brock Lampy dude who was listed as the only fullback on the depth chart, he's hurt. And now Westover has shown that he can kind of play the fullback role. So could Baker and Chisholm, not say force, but give the Patriots the idea of going with Hunter and Hooper as your tight ends, Westover as a fullback tight end hybrid, slip Bell to the practice squad, and roll with 7 wide receivers? I think it's going to be tough, especially with Chisholm. It'd be tough to get him, to clear and get to a practice squad of what he's shown already. I just think Baker, with some of the stuff he's done in practice and everything like that, making plays, I don't know. But let's just say they decide to go with only 6, and you're having to keep one of those 4 that I talked about: Bourne, Polk, Baker, and Chisholm. I think Polk to the IR is like a given at this point. I think Bourne maybe as well. If it comes to Baker and Chisholm, maybe Chisholm gets the nod. But I don't know. This wide receiver thing has fascinated me. Would love to hear from you about your thoughts on the wide receiver group. How many would you keep? Who do you think has kind of stood out to you? Chisholm stood out for me for sure. And I'm kind of glad that Booty has kind of elevated his status based off of last year, because I kept saying a lot of people were condemning the young wide receiver group off of last year. I remember last year, special circumstances, a lot of dysfunction. So I was glad to see some of these young guys, convince Rabel to keep them on the squad. All right, so the last thing I'll say about the Patriots, and then I'll get out of here. If you were like doing a whole write up on the Patriots, I feel like your conclusion would be this: Patriots look like an NFL organization where there were several games last year we seriously wondered if this wasn't some, alternate universe where this was some amateur team trying to play with big boys. And once again, that's not to knock Mayo and everything. I think it was a tough circumstance for them. Mayo, inexperienced, following Belichick. Like, it was whatever. It is what it is. Vrabel has come in and locked it down. The coaching staff, miles better than last year. The energy around the team, miles better. Like these guys were out there on the field, like they were really trying to prove something and show that they are not going to be the same mess they were last season. I'm here for it. I'm excited. I'm not going overboard preseason, but definitely off on a good foot. The right start, however you want to phrase it. A lot of encouragement based off of what the Patriots did. So, appreciate you for tuning in. I know this was a little bit longer than usual, but like I said, I may, going forward, take like a weekend day and kind of wrap up the week with all the teams. Let me know if you're down for that idea. If not, cool. But yeah, it's good to have the NFL back and feel better about the team. Win total, we'll get into that in a future episode. But for right now, the product on the field has me intrigued. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, so look, make sure you go ahead and like it, follow or subscribe depending on the platform. If you're checking this out audio version, leave a review, follow the show. Greatly appreciate it. Make sure you look in the description. We'll have a link to the blog. Check that out. Going through the NFL divisions to do a little preview. NFC West is up there. NFC South will be up there by midweek. Would love some of your input on those breakdowns. Obviously, leaving the AFC East for last because that's the squads division. That's going to be when you see that one go up, football is really back. So check that out. Also, look, I'm going live on the channel, with the wire to wire network stuff that I do. So Tuesday nights, Friday nights, and Thursday nights during the NFL season, make sure you tune into the channel, be live with the shows I do over there. So I'd love to see some of you who check out these videos, maybe in the chat during one of those lives, have some good conversation. So appreciate all of you. I really do. So I guess look out for the next video where we will, well, I don't know yet. Might do some more Patriots talk because, like I said, this wide receiver thing, I'm locked in. So if any news breaks there, Brad Stevens wants to slip in another move at some point this week. We'll definitely talk about it. And obviously, with the Red Sox heading down to Houston in another big series, we keeping a close eye on how they look coming off of the 2 out of 3. I guess off the series loss against the Padres. And if anything else happens, here to talk about it. So appreciate you. Be safe. God bless. I'm out of here. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll see you next time. All right. Bye.